everyone around the Phillies laid out the fact that this was a huge series against the Atlanta Braves. And Friday night, the Phillies got off to a great start. They were off to a 5-0 lead thanks to Humberto Quintero, who had 3 RBIs, including 2 on that opposite field home run. And how about Ryan Howard? Yes, his knee has been bothering him, but it certainly didn't bother him on that swing. The Phillies then had a hold on. They turned things over to Jonathan Papelbon to get the last out in the 9th inning, and the Phillies won that ball game 5-4 over the Atlanta Braves. Optimism was abounding until yesterday. Andrelton Simmons led off the ball game with a solo home run. That gave the Braves the early lead, and they never looked back. Dan Uggla against Kyle Kendrick then hit a 2-run shot. He's got the most home runs of anybody among active players. Dan Uggla against the Phillies. And Tim Hudson, well, he ended a long winless streak by basically moving the ball inside and out against these Phillies hitters. He was dominant as he was able to front run, and the Braves won that ball game 13-4. And now the Phillies and the Braves get together at red-hot Citizens Bank Park for the final game of this 3-game series. And since we last saw you on Friday, the Phillies made a major roster move. Ryan Howard, before yesterday's ball game, was placed on the 15-day disabled list, and Darren Rupp has been called up from Lehigh Valley. He had 2 at-bats last night. He'll make the start this afternoon. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McCarthy, along with Gary Matthews. The Phils and the Braves get together for the final game of this 3-game series. Ruff does make the start, Sarge. It's not in left field, where he's played a majority of his games this year. It's over at first base, where he'll probably play a lot the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think he would feel comfortable over there. He's been playing that position, probably his best position, trying to learn how to play left field. Take a look at the graphics. You can see exactly what he was doing there in Lehigh Valley. Not bad on the RBIs. I like that. Maybe striking out a little bit too much, over 80 times there in those 82 games. But here's a guy that I know one day will be able to hit in the major leagues, and consistently. This is what he did there last year. You can see this guy has some power. Learning still how to hit. On this level there, you got to have slow feet. He does that, but not consistently. At least he hasn't done it here in the major leagues. Again, this guy's going to be a force one day. Does have really good mechanics. Looking forward to this guy to play well here before it's all said and done.
Well, let's see what he does here this afternoon against Chris Medlin. Meanwhile, for the Phillies, Jonathan Pettibone will make the start for the Phils. He was pretty good in his last outing against the Pirates.
Yes, he sure was there, mixing his pitches around the plate. Doing pretty good there and holding his own as a rookie. Take a look here at the highlights there as he has 14 major league starts, 7 career quality starts there as he moves the ball around. Throws a heavy sinker for me. Again, he's learning how to pitch, showing that he's not afraid. Will pitch inside. Nice little off-speed pitch. That's what you need there. And, hey, how about that double play? Always helping out a pitcher. Their best friend there, too, that double play ball. I like him, too, as a starter there. Again, learning how to pitch. He's going to be okay before it's all said and done. I like the ERA and what he's done here at this ballpark. Look forward for a good ball game here, Tom.
All right, Sarge, 11 starts this year for Pettibone. He's allowed 3 runs or less. The Phillies have been able to pick up victories in a majority of those ball games. They hope they can do the same this afternoon against the Atlanta Braves. Again, it's a needed victory for the Phils. It'll be Pettibone making his 15th start overall. Chris Medlin making his 18th start for the Atlanta Braves. When we return, we'll have the lineups and first pitch for the Sunday matinee. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Bud Light. It's the short side of a good time. Here we go. By Toyota. Toyota's independent sales event is going on now. Visit your Toyota dealer. Toyota, let's go places. By Citizens Bank, where good banking is good citizenship. Isn't it time you experience good banking? By Xfinity, the official HD triple play provider of your Phillies. And by Independence Blue Cross, the most preferred health plan in the region. Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. They started their day by getting Wheels to sign his book. It's the paperback version. Pretty nice line you had going there today, Wheels.
A lot of nice people, Tom, and it was a pleasure to be out there, and thanks to everybody that were nice enough to come by the new book, and I was happy to sign.
View from the booth. It's the paperback version. They did a heck of a job, too, with that paperback version. It's a beautiful-looking book. Wheels wearing his U.S. Open golf shirt that he just picked up. Nice outfit for today.
That baby is soaked through.
Well, now you know how Sarge feels.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the starting lineup for the Braves. It's brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports. Not too much different from the last couple of days. Simmons leads it off at shortstop. Then Jason Hayward and Justin Upton. Freddie Freeman, the first baseman, bats cleanup. Brian McCann hits fifth. Dan Uggla bats sixth, followed by B.J. Upton and Chris Johnson, who hits eighth. At batting ninth and pitching is Chris Medlin. And they'll face 22-year-old right-hander Jonathan Pettibone. 15th start for Jonathan, 4-3, a 3.99 earned run average.
There are the numbers on him, and 9 home runs allowed. He's had a lot of trouble in the first inning, and that's one of the things that he has to get a little bit better at. Our scouting report on him, going to throw fastball, slider, cutter. He'll be a fastball changeup mix. Last time out, he threw more sliders. And his earned run average very good in his last 3 starts. He will allow base runners, but he strands a lot of them too.
Simmons started last night's ball game with a home run against Kyle Kendrick, and the Braves really never looked back from that standpoint. It was a high pitch, and somehow he was able to pull it out of the yard.
He tomahawked that baby.
Braves set season highs in runs with 13 and hits with 19 in yesterday's game. That one's hit towards second, and Chase Utley is there.
Looks like the Phillies when they had all those hits and runs against the Dodgers the other night. They couldn't take them into the next game, and they lost it. So maybe that'll happen with the Braves today.
Well, the conditions, and they will play a factor, you would think, in today's game. 94 degrees, humid. And for the fans who are sitting out in the sunshine, well, hats off to you.
Really.
It is obviously a hot summer afternoon here in South Philadelphia. Jason Hayward is now due up. Hayward 2 for 8 so far in the series, and a home run in yesterday's ball game. 7 home runs and 20 runs batted in. And he fouls the first pitch back.
Here's the home run he hit last night. It was off Joe Sabry on a breaking ball out over the plate a little bit, and they got out in a hurry. A low line drive to right center field. Joe went a couple innings last night. They need innings out of Pettibone today.
Just off the inside corner, 1-1. Pettibone, a third-round pick in 2008 for the Phillies, out of Esperanza High School, the same high school that produced former Phil David Newhan. As Carlos Ruiz gives that a look, and it's just back into the Diamond Club. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
David Newhan played here for a while. His dad, Ross Newhan, is in the writers wing of the Baseball Hall of Fame. Ross Newhan, tremendous writer from Los Angeles, wrote for the LA Times for a long time. Good man.
Just off the outside corner, according to the home plate umpire, Doug Eddings. You can hear Eddings in the background say ball outside.
Tough for those guys tonight today with those masks on, the catcher and the umpire. Only advantage, they do get to work in the dirt down there, but still a lot better than it used to be than working on turf as you look at the umpiring crew and Doug behind the plate.
Dayton DeMuth is the crew chief over at first base for today's ball game. Now the 3-2 pitch, and a called strike 3. He came in with an 85-mile-an-hour changeup, and there are 2 outs. First strikeout for Pettibone. It's his 50th of the year.
Talked about how he likes to use his fastball changeup mix, and that really surprised Hayward. He knew it was a strike, and he took a hike. Time now for our Nissan keys to this afternoon's game. Well, Tom mentioned it. Number 1 key, deal with the heat. A lot of times the weather isn't that big a deal in a game. It is a huge factor here this afternoon.
Justin Upton takes inside, and it's 1 ball and no strikes.
I got another brilliant key to come up here.
There you go.
There it is. You want quick innings from your guy. to survive the first inning, and you want their guy to have long innings and throw a lot of pitches. That's how you win today.
Yeah, Pettibone in his last outing had a 33 pitch inning against the Pirates. It wasn't his fault. His defense kind of left him, and that's part of the reason why he lasted just 5 2/3. 1 ball, 1 strike to Justin Upton, and a change up 1 and 2.
It'll be an endurance test out there for the pitchers this afternoon. Now, he's only 22. He'll turn 23 on the 19th of this month, and he's a big, strong guy, is Jonathan. But a day like this for a pitcher, really tough.
Outside 2-2. Now you might hear us pronounce his name a little differently today than what we've been pronouncing since he was called up, and even over the last few years in spring training. But the correct pronunciation, as Jonathan told us the other day, is Pettibone, like Tom Petty. And a swing and a miss, and you can call him what you want, but he struck out the last 2 batters to wrap up the top of the first inning. So nothing across for Pettibone. We go to the bottom of the first. It's the Braves nothing, the Phillies coming up. Cliff Lee jerseys all around the ballpark. The Phillies All-Star along with Dominic Brown. Let's take a look at the Phillies starting lineup today. It's brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports. It does include the All-Star Dominic Brown batting cleanup, but some changes at the top with Revere leading off. Then Rollins and Utley have been flip-flopped. Michael Young bats 5th, Delman Young 6th. Darren Rupp does make the start at first base. He'll hit 7th for the Phillies. Carlos Ruiz will bat 8th. And batting 9th and pitching is Pettibone. And they'll face right-hander Chris Medlin, who's not having the same year this year that he had a season ago, but it's not bad. His ERA is at 3.11.
He doesn't get a whole lot of run support. You see, he has given up 11 home runs. Phillies beat him early in the season. Cliff Lee beat him 2-0, and that was the first game the Braves hadn't won when he was on the mound in a long time. Here's our scouting report on him. He has a very, very good changeup that he likes to use. He's been getting hurt on his fastball this year more than other years. Career as a starter, 21-9 with very good earned run average, and in the month of June he had a 2.14 earned run average in 5 starts. So he had a slow start this year, but as Tom mentioned, he's pitching very well right now, and he's not a guy you think you're going to go out and just hit all over the place, because he has tremendous stuff.
Well, he'll face Ben Revere to start things off. Revere hitting .296 with no home runs and 14 runs batted in. Revere has been average-wise one of the better center fielders in Major League Baseball over the last month and a half. And the first pitch is a strike, and we qualify that because there have been other center fielders like a Mike Trout who have provided more pop, but very few have hit for a better average since the 1st of May. Revere's hitting .340 since the 1st of May. That one's out toward left field. Justin Upton is there, and 1 away.
And one of the reasons his average has climbed and he has so many hits, as Tom was just saying, is hitting the ball on the ground a lot. When he does that, he makes outs. But when he hits the ball on the ground and line drives, a lot of hits.
Well, now 1 out. Here's Jimmy Rollins. Rollins has a 9-game hitting streak going. His average at .266 with 4 home runs and 29 runs batted in. When he had his base hit yesterday to make it a 3-1 ball game, I think a lot of folks thought, all right, well, the Phillies can get back in this game. But it wasn't the case.
thought they had a chance after Kendrick got out of that inning when he had the bases loaded, nobody out, and he threw the dance step double play, the 1-2-3, and then he got out after that. Well, you know, maybe this thing will turn around, but it wasn't to be. They got thumped.
Kyle threw a lot of pitches those first few innings. Dan Uggla was a big part of that because of his home run yesterday, second one of the series. Lucky McDonald's Phillies home run jackpot contestant is April Law of Philadelphia. Phillies home run in today's ball game, then April will win $100. 1-2 to Rollins. Medlin is not a big guy. He's 5'10". That's what he's listed at, 195 pounds. 27-year-old.
He's a pretty good relief pitcher. They moved him into the rotation last year on account of injuries. One of them, the Jair Jurgens, really opened up a spot for him. And he did a tremendous job for him.
So he did so well that he was given the ball for game 1 in the postseason.
Right. He was 12-0 last year as a starter.
There was that changeup, and it's popped up. And Freddie Freeman makes the catch. Actually, it looked like a changeup grip, but as you look at the board, it was 90 miles an hour, so that was a fastball. 2 outs here in the first. Here comes Chase Utley.
Medlin likes to move his fastball around and pitch inside. He just threw a little, that was a little comeback sinker type fastball. Look at McCann, he didn't know where it was. But Freddie Freeman had it all the way, and so did the pitcher, just in case there were any problems.
2 outs. Chase Utley is the batter. Utley's hit it 4 straight. He's had good numbers against the Braves overall this year. He's hitting .389 against them, which is 2 for 7 in the series so far, but 7 for 18 overall.
Really playing him to pull. And Jarlton Simmons, the shortstop, almost behind second base. Big hole on the left side. They'll leave the third baseman off the bag.
Utley hooks it to right, a base hit. So he's hit it 5 straight. And that'll bring Dominic Brown to the plate, recognized in his first All-Star game yesterday. Pretty good honor, Murph. Pretty good honor.
No doubt about it. One that he told us that he's been working towards for some time now. So it's really nice to see him get rewarded. Obviously, he is well earned. He deserves to be an All-Star, and he's getting the nod. And I think what was most important to him was, the fans. He was voted about 15th in the fan voting, but the players, his peers, voted him 4th, and that's the way he made the team. And when talking to him about that, you could just see him being. That was what he was most proud of, because the guys that he's playing with, the guys around the league, have recognized the first half of a season that he has had. And he worked so hard to get here, so it certainly is nice to see him rewarded by that.
That's such a great point, Murph, because of the fan vote is fun to watch, and it's great for baseball, but that can be a popularity thing, or what team draws the most, those kind of things. But what he's talking about with you, that's what really counts.
Yeah, it really is when you stop and think about it. If you're getting recognized in any walk of life, it's the folks that are doing the exact same thing as you are. When they can see, what a job you've done, it certainly does mean a lot. And for Dom Brown, it meant a lot.
Well, it seems like he's going to try to soak up all of the festivities for the week, and why not? Phillies will remain in New York. We'll play the Mets after the All-Star game, so he can hang there for a few days. But he also said if he's asked, he probably will say yes to the home run derby.
That's great to hear him say that stuff, too, because, you say, oh, you made the All-Star team, you're 20-some years old, you don't have a lot. You never, ever know if you're going back again.
Think about Sarge. He only went to 1. He deserved more.
And there have been really good players that have never been to an All-Star game. So that's a tremendous attitude to have when you go there, is enjoy it. It's not a burden. It's an honor.
No balls, 2 strikes to Brown with 2 outs here in the bottom of the first. And he rips that one off the glove of Freeman. It's a fair ball, and it's rolling softly down to the corner. Utley's going to wind up scoring because Hayward didn't get to it right away, and the Phillies are going to take a 1-0 lead on a triple by Dominic Brown.
Ugla had a shot at him at third. He didn't realize it, and then he double pumped, and Dominic winds up with the triple after he scalds up. I don't know if Freeman saw that right away. He's got to catch that ball. They're not going to score it an error, but as good a hands as he has, he just misplayed it. That's what I'm saying. I don't know whether it came out of the crowd, and then as Tom said, slowed down into the corner. Easy wave in for Ryan Sandberg as that ball was just trickling into the corner for Hayward. And Dominic Brown throw late for the triple.
Yeah, that little half moon on that first baseman's glove bent back pretty abruptly for Freddie Freeman. So Utley scores to give the Phils the early lead. Here's Michael Young.
Well, you can't. A ball hit that hard. Obviously, it's a hit. It has to be. But that's a ball that Freeman just, they catch those a lot of times. First baseman, it's a reaction position, and even though he has to deal with a base runner over there, they're used to that.
Fourth triple of the year for Brown. It's also his 61st RBI.
Dominic Brown, you go back to April, and now we're sitting here. He's hitting fourth, and he's an all-star. Are you kidding me? It's amazing. It's just one of the more remarkable transformations. Been around a long time, and to see what happened with him is just tremendous to watch.
Yeah, folks in Cleveland are saying the same thing about Kipnis, but Kipnis had a decent year last year, even though he struggled this year to start. As Michael Young draws the walk. Here are the National League All-Stars starters. Obviously, Dominic's not part of that. Yadier Molina may or may not be able to play in that game because of a knee issue. We got Votto, Phillips, Tulowitzki right over at third. He held off the Panda Bear. And the outfield is Beltran, Gonzalez, and Harper. And here are the reserves. Alan Craig, people say, got the nod over Puig, but a lot of RBIs.
Alan Craig, that's no mercy booking.
Not even a little bit.
That guy, go ask the Cardinals what he's meant to them being in, well, they're in second place now, what they've done.
Delman Young loops it out towards center. That's going to drop in for a base hit. Here comes Dominic Brown. It's a 2-0 ball game. B.J. Upton was playing awfully deep.
He does play deep. He is one of those deep center fielders, and that ball off the end of the bat, it wasn't even a matter of freezing, misjudging. He's just really, really deep in that outfield. You see him way out here in center field. And as Tom mentioned, he's really slow getting to it. But he's out so far, there's not much he can do about it. He's throwing sliders or cutters or something up there right now. You know, you look at the breakdown on him, and he's not a big breaking ball guy. He's more of a fastball, curveball, changeup. And he's throwing some harder breaking balls.
Fans are cheering the fact that the sun has gone behind a cloud. That and Darren Ruff has been introduced. Ruff got a nice round of applause yesterday. He was one for two off the bench.
There it goes for just a little while.
That was great, though, the reaction from the crowd.
It's opposed to other times when it's rainy and the sun comes out and he gets a cheer.
Inside, 2-0 to Ruff.
He doesn't have real good command here in the first inning. His uniform is already dark. The visiting uniforms always look a lot worse than the home uniforms on days like this when the guy's sweating. He'll probably go through a few of those today.
Ruff down to AAA, a 266 hitter with 7 home runs and 46 runs batted in.
Great opportunity for him. Talking to Charlie before the game, he says he's going to play him. So I'm not going to say I'm playing him every day at that position. He says, but I'm going to play him.
He's a pretty good defensive first baseman, too.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, you haven't seen him play all that much.
Out in front of an off-speed pitch, 2-2.
Now there's that changeup that we were talking about in the scouting report. Medlin for a long time is fastball changeup guy, especially when he was a relief pitcher and you only wanted to have a couple of pitches. Then he has curveball, and he's either throwing a slider or cutter today, and he's gotten hurt on it a little bit.
Two and two to Darren Ruff. And Medlin spins back. Michael Young didn't have that big of a lead, but he still decided to spin back on him.
Talk about that scouting report. So far, so good in the first inning. Phillies guy, not many pitches. Their guy, a lot of pitches.
runners will be off. Carlos Ruiz, the number 8 hitter, is on deck. Runners go. Swing and a miss. And the side is retired, but the Phillies get some damage. They score a couple runs, an RBI triple by Dominic Brown, an RBI single by Delman Young. Little luck involved in this game. He scorched that one right off the glove of Freddie Freeman. Utley was able to score from first. It's 2-0 Phillies as we move to the second. Freddie Freeman, Brian McCann, Dan Ugla. Freeman, a .307 hitter with 9 home runs and 56 runs batted in.
Good job by the Phillies to pick up 2 runs with 2 outs in the first inning. Medlin showing Darren Ruff all of a sudden, oh, I'm in the big leagues. Threw them a 2-1 changeup and a 3-2 changeup from a right-hander. You know, that's one of those things you're thinking, man, they do that up here, huh?
Darren's over at first base, making his first start in the big leagues this year. He made 19 appearances at first base down at Lehigh Valley. His primary work was in left field.
Sure.
But they did have him play some first base.
Well, they had him playing left field a lot to see if he could play it. If they needed him up here, and you know, Ryan Howard's your first baseman. Well, Ryan Howard's gone. We don't know for how long.
Yeah, Ryan will have an MRI tomorrow to check out that injured left knee. And at that point, they'll have a better idea. As Freeman fouls it off over the third base dugout. Outside, and it's 3-2.
Freddie Freeman's their best hitter. Great eye, runs deep counts, short swing. Hard to believe he's not on the All-Star team.
Swing and a miss. Pettibone has 3 strikeouts, 3 in a row. And with 1 out, Brian McCann's coming up. It's time now for our Coors Light Cold Hard Fact, brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light. And the Cold Hard Fact is about Brian McCann, who steps in for the Braves. One of 2 Braves players since 1900 to have at least 1 extra base hit in 7 consecutive games as a catcher. Earl Williams was the other.
Big Earl. Oh, was he tall. Big, tall, strong guy, right-handed hitter, and he could really hit some homers. I don't think he ever hit for much average, but he was an impressive physical specimen.
Inside and low, 1-1.
He had one of the first at the vet, too, and I'm trying to think. Oh.
And that one's whacked through the middle, a base hit. So Brian McCann now 20 for his last 40.
Well, the key with the Braves is to keep them in the ballpark because they're going to strike out a lot, and they're not a team that goes single, walk, single necessarily to throw big innings at you. Not to say they can't, but that's not their game. Their game is to get a couple men on and somebody pop it.
Now it's an 8-game hitting streak for McCann. You know, Freddie Gonzalez, who you just saw, had talked at the beginning of the series about giving McCann a little bit of time off because he's caught so much, but he had a play early in game 1 because Gerald Laird was thrown out, and then started game 2, came out late, and now starts here in game 3. He's just been so hot.
And how about where he's playing? You know, he'd walk over here from the airport, you think, playing this park. He kills the Phillies here. Hurts him in Atlanta, too.
No balls, 1 strike to Ugla. And it's 0-2.
Trying to throw him stuff that's going away from him right now because Ugla looks to pull as much as possible early in the count and hit hard stuff out of the ballpark. And you can get him to chase. Too much of the play. You want to go intentional high fastball there to see if he chase up near the letters, and that's the kind of pitch right there that he can tie the game on.
Down, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Earl Williams, 6'3", 215 pounds. He had 33 home runs in 1971. That was the first year the vet opened. I think I just remember him doing something early there in the history of the stadium. But anyway, he was tough that year.
Towering pop-up, left side. Michael Young and Jimmy Rollins, and they're going to collide. You can see that happening. I'm sure both called it. It's usually the shortstop's ball, but Young makes the catch. No harm, no foul, and there are 2 outs.
Yeah, it's not like the crowd is yelling real loud either, trying to confuse the fielders. That was Jimmy Rollins' ball, but Michael Young kept drifting. He's a little bit taller, so he makes the play. I don't know. That's one of those ones that should never be miscommunication on a ball that's hit that high. That's not trouble.
Here's B.J. Upton. Upton takes inside. 1 ball, no strikes. Upton 2 for 9 so far in the series. Broke his bat, and Utley charges. Throws him out. Side is retired. No runs. 1 hit and 1 man left. We go to the bottom of the 2nd here at South Philly. It's the Phillies 2 and the Braves nothing. Day after the ball game, it's the fireworks show brought to you by Xfinity. Purchase tickets by going to Phillies.com for all 4 against the Washington Nationals. Nationals are 5 games out. They're the National League East behind the Braves. The Phillies 8.5 games out as play begins today.
They'll bring Dan Herron off the DL tomorrow on the pitch. Detweiler's on the disabled list now with a bad back, so Dan Herron comes off. And then a kid they brought out from Double-A who's pitched pretty well for him, Taylor Jordan, a right-hander. Then Gio and then Jordan Zimmerman.
Well, speaking of pitchers, here are the National League pitchers who have been selected to the All-Star game. Jordan Zimmerman of the Nationals, who you just mentioned, was the only Washington pitcher on the list. Travis Wood makes it from the Cubs. Adam Wainwright, what a great first half he's had. And Matt Harvey, who lost his second game the other day. People are wondering, is it Wainwright? Is it Harvey? Who will start the All-Star game for the National League?
Well, the sentimental favorite is New York. Pretty obvious. And we'll see what Bruce Bochy thinks about that.
Here's Carlos Ruiz. Ruiz played yesterday. He was 0 for 4.
And I don't know that would be a mercy booking either to start Matt Harvey. Pretty good pitcher.
Very true.
I think you'd worry about him. Would he go out there and have such an adrenaline rush? He could be all over the place. And he is a cool customer.
In fact, Wainwright, I believe, is scheduled to pitch next Sunday, the last day before the All-Star game, All-Star break, so he may not even be eligible to start.
Right, or even pitch.
Inside and low, 1 ball, 1 strike to Ruiz.
I think Bochy ought to pitch Harvey about 3 innings, then he can't pitch in the series against the Phillies. Or less likely to.
Off the hands. Hits that one in center field, a base hit to start the second.
Medlin had one of those slump shoulder looks that a pitcher gets sometimes with bad body language. Like, I just made my pitch, and how did he do that?
During the 2013 season, Turkey Hill will contribute $100 for each Phillies victory and 5 cents for each carton of Phillies Grand Slam ice cream. Sold to support the Phillies youth baseball and softball programs.
Pettibone's done a pretty good job with the bat. He has not sacrificed to this point. I don't know that he's even attempted one.
I think he has. I think he's fouled off a couple pitches or done that. Well, that's a foul tip, and it's 0-1.
He's walked a few times. He's put a lot of balls in play. With Ruiz at first, Freeman's getting a really quick run down at first base, and of course the third baseman's right on his doorstep. You want to bunt it towards the first baseman, but Freeman's going to be on it in a hurry. What he's doing up there. He has that look like, what am I doing? That's just not good what I just did. Either one of them. You see guys bunt through pitches sometimes. He didn't even get near bunting through that. He just bunted at it and didn't even come close to it.
And he bunts that one foul. He's down on strikes. Second strikeout for Medlin. Weeknights on PHL 17. It's the Big Bang Theory. Don't miss a full hour of laughs with Sheldon, Penny, Raj, Howard, and the rest of the nerds. It's all on Philly's #1 comedy, The Big Bang Theory. Weeknights at 7 on PHL 17. Well, set up 1 out and a runner at second. It's 1 out and a runner at first for Revere, who flied to left his first time up. and is 4 for 9 of the series so far. He's had a hit in 4 straight games, and there's a changeup, 0-2.
He backed up changeup, so he got a called strike on the first one. See how many changeups Medlin will throw, because he's not afraid to throw it to right-handed hitters as he showed to Ruff. And left-handed hitters, it's an out pitch.
Stop at the local store, get a bag of ice, bring it on in. A dribbler to the right of the mound. Ugla has it and flips to first. Freeman hangs onto the bag.
Change up again, trying to get him to roll one over into a double play. And wound up getting a runner into scoring position because he nubbed it towards Ugla. See, 3 straight changeups. One a called, one a foul, and this one's a ball. But Ennings had called one off the plate on him early in that count, so you got to swing at that.
Now a base hit by Rollins could score Ruiz. Now you've got plus arms all the way around.
They're all deep.
They are deep. DJ Upton's deep in center, but so is his brother in left and Hayward in right. Rollins off the end of the bat toward right field. It'll hang up for Hayward. Side is retired. No runs. 1 hit and 1 man left for the Phillies. We've completed our first 2 here at Citizens Bank Park with the Phillies in an early lead. Go to the fans section for all the information, and please submit your answer on the subject line. Wills, the question is, which Phillies pitcher did Freddie Freeman hit his first major league home run off?
Well, I got the buzzer before that even came up.
I think you have a pretty good chance of getting this one.
I do too.
Answer will be revealed in the 7th inning.
I don't remember where it went. But this is for the fans.
Lucas's first Phillies game. Wills, have you signed a book for Lucas? That's what you should write next, Wheels, is a children's book for folks like Lucas. A children's book in the form of a view from the booth.
I don't even know where to go with that. I'll leave that up to you daddies. You'll handle that.
Chris Johnson takes a changeup as we begin the 3rd. Johnson batting 8th. His average at .333. He's 3 for 9 in this series. Ground ball left side. Michael Young charges.
And Ruff have to get used to all these infielders too, and their throws, how they move, how they don't move. It's all a learning process.
He was over at first base a couple of games last year, but he was primarily out in left field when the Phillies brought him up.
Right, that was September. A little bit in spring training, but they play in the outfield in spring training. So it's very different because everybody throws a baseball differently.
Medlin takes outside. It's 1 ball and no strikes. Phillies have a couple of big first basemen in their system. I was in Trenton last night watching the Reading Fightin' Phils against the Thunder. And Jim Murphy is the first baseman in Reading. And he is a big kid. He's 10 months younger than Darren Ruff, a college guy like Ruff. And he's leading the Eastern League in RBIs. In fact, Mike Drago from the Reading paper, the Reading Eagle, has a story about Jim today, if you want to get caught up on some of the minor leaguers.
Right or left-handed hitter?
That's a good question. I don't remember what he was. He's a right-handed hitter. Big kid, though. Saw Michael Franco hit a home run last night. 2-2 pitch. Ground ball right side. Utley comes charging in.
He didn't run that thing out. That's unbelievable. The way Medlin, as a pitcher, just ran that ground ball out. They better take a long time to get up the home plate right now for him.
Well, as he goes back to the dugout, we'll remind you that the Phillies will wind down this homestand against the Chicago White Sox this weekend. And then Sunday the 14th, which is a 1:35 start. Fans 15 and older will receive the Pennsylvania Auto Theft Prevention Authority travel mugs, free to fans 15 and older. Get your tickets by going to Phillies.com.
You would think as a pitcher right now, if you were ever going to get a gimme strike, it would be now that Simmons would take one for his pitcher. But I guess that's dangerous to think that way nowadays. He did. See, this kid, you watch, I was going to say, I'd be really disappointed because watching him, he knows how to play. He just does things the right way. He looks like a ball player. And right there, he's not even thinking about swinging. And you like to see guys run the ball out. Pitcher doesn't run the ball out today. That's okay. You'd say that would be just fine. He could trot on down to first. Just run through the bag. That's all. Give him a pass today.
2 balls and 1 strike to Simmons. Simmons grounded out to Utley his first time up.
Oof. That'll make him walk away. There've been some looks the last couple innings on balls and strikes.
It's been some looks the first 3 games of the first few games of the series.
On Friday.
Yeah, Paul Nart was all right yesterday. A little low 3-2.
And nothing happened that game last night was Nart's fault.
Rollins scoops it up. And easy hitting for Pettibone. 1-2-3 go the Braves. We'll go to the bottom of the third. Chase Utley is due to lead it off for the Phillies. By WB Mason, you can't go wrong when you buy right. and by the Quality Plus Ford stores. Go further. Last of the third, 2-0 Phillies on top. It'll be Chase Utley, Dominic Brown, Michael Young, 3-4-5 for the Phillies. Phillies scored 2 of the first after Utley singled with 2 outs, scored on a triple by Brown. Then Brown scored a couple batters later on a base hit by Delman Young. Chase with 11 home runs, that matches his total from 2012 and 2011. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, the Padres and the Nationals are underway. Top of the third down in D.C. Bryce Harper an RBI. And the Nats are leading the Padres 1-0.
As he changed their offense since he came back.
The Nationals have won 3 straight.
And they're trying to sweep San Diego, who has really been struggling.
San Diego's been struggling since the Phillies were out in San Diego.
Yep.
They've lost 8 in a row. And now they're in the basement.
Menlin's got his changeup now, so he'll be a little bit tougher. It's good to get a couple off him in the first inning because he gets his changeup, he can really be difficult. And he has real good command of it right now.
And a breaking ball, and Utley is struck out. 3rd strikeout for Medlin. 3 strikeouts for Medlin so far brings Dominic Brown to the plate. Dominic is the subject of our Geico quote of the day about making the All-Star game. It's definitely an honor. I worked hard trying to get here. I'm just trying to keep it going. I always tell you guys I set my goals high. That was definitely one of them. I hope he has some lofty goals for his career, because it'll be nice to see him continue to evolve.
And stay the same person he is too.
Absolutely.
Be interesting to see what he's like when he comes back from the All-Star game, because that can be a life-changing experience sometimes, and you don't want to get caught up in that too much. Be the same guy he is right now and go out and play as hard as he does. Thinking about that triple that he hit. We're talking about Freddie Freeman, the way he didn't catch it. It may have gotten on him in a hurry too. He hit that thing hard.
Pulls that one to the right side. Dan Uggla to his left. There are 2 outs now for Michael Young. Young walked at his first at bat. To see how Michael does now out of the leadoff spot, where he really was hitting the ball well, although over his last 30 games or so his batting average is well over 300. If it wasn't for that long offer, I guess any player can say this about any point in their season, his average would be over 300. It's at 284 right now. He's behind 0-2.
Medlin's got his best pitch on the string right now. He can throw where he wants to at any point in the count.
And Young is struck out. 4 strikeouts for Medlin. He has 3 strikeouts the last couple of innings. Phillies go down in order. 6 in a row retired by Medlin, and we'll go to the 4th here in Philadelphia. On your best clothes. No need to worry if it's a spill or worse. WB Mason has an all-star selection of cleaning products to mop it up. We go to the fourth. Jason Hayward, Justin Upton, Freddie Freeman are due up. Phillies on top 2-0. Sarge, what do you think of that star-spangled Jeff cap that youngster just had on that we were just showing? It was pretty nice with a big star on the side of it.
I like that cap. Actually, I had one a little earlier. Well, not that same cap, however. You know, I'm a cap and a hat guy. Look at that one there. It's just nice, and it keeps the sun off your face. I've been trying to get you to use one of those caps.
I had a cap on all day yesterday. I had a St. Joseph's basketball cap on all day yesterday. Jason Hayward takes upstairs. 2 balls, no strikes. Took an American Legion game in the afternoon and then took in a minor league game at night. Hayward struck out looking his first time up. And he takes strike 1 here. It's 2-1. Pettibone is retired 9 of 10. 5 groundouts during that time.
You look at Hayward's stance. One of the reasons he's having a little difficult time, just when you look at his hands, he starts to point that bat the other way. Can't get around on those balls.
Nice play by Pettibone. A little flip to Darren Ruff. Well, that was the toughest part of it, whether the two could stop each other.
Oh, good thing Darren stayed right on the bag.
Take a look at our Mazda leaders and the team batting averages here in the month of July. The Braves have an on-base percentage of over 380 during that span, where they're hitting 330. The Phillies, of course, third. Nationals are there. They were one of the worst offensive teams the first 3 months of the season. Charlie Manuel did say the other day that he was happy with the way the offense was starting to pick things up. He did say that the bullpen needed to pick things up and the defense needed to pick things up.
Well, hard to judge pitching if you don't have defense. The defense can make up for some of the mistakes when a pitcher throws a ball in a place he doesn't like.
Out of play, 0-1.
For a hitter, days like today are just great days to hit. And I say that because you can wear that pitcher down, especially power pitchers. All the energy.
Ruff with a nice backhanded play, and Pettibone is there to cover. 3-1 on the putout. He said he moves pretty well over at first base.
Yeah. Well, it probably feels a lot more comfortable. I mean, that was one of his positions that he played. They're able to flip the ball. They probably worked together before. Tell you, this play here is all timing. You got to lead the pitcher. Feels very confident in that. Pettibone actually running over, hitting that bag on the side.
Change up high, 1-0 to Freeman. So Pettibone now with the 11 ground ball outs in his first 12 batters.
That late movement on the ball. Ball there. Two-seamer. A little sinker. That's why he has so many ground balls.
Ball's off the foot of Freeman. Should say that Pettibone's retired 11 of the first 12 batters he's faced. So the distribution of outs there. 7 ground outs. Now the 1-2 pitch. And out of play.
Doing a good job being around the plate, keeping the ball out of the middle of the plate. This hot Sunday afternoon. It's really tell he's starting to get more and more confident. Each start that Pettibone goes out and starts, going to get better and better. That's half the battle when you're a young player, being able to come up and have that confidence that you can pitch on this level, regardless of whether or not you're forced into action or because of injuries.
He gets Freeman on strikes for the second time today. 4 strikeouts for Pettibone. He retires the Braves in order for a second straight inning. He's set down 8 in a row and 12 of the first 13 batters. Pretty good movement against the Braves left-hander. Dealer today by Citizens Bank, where good banking is good citizenship. Isn't it time you experience good banking? And by Xfinity, the official HD triple play provider of your Phillies. Well, that fan is coming in handy for everyone today. Scott Sheridan, Phillies athletic trainer, is making sure that he's right by it, getting cooled off. See the players walking down toward it from time to time just to kind of cool themselves off. Also down by the tunnel where Ruiz is walking down at this moment. There's a little air conditioning that pops out from there too. Got to stay cool on a day like this.
Yeah, doesn't help all that much. We used to actually have ice in the dugout where you'd come back in a tray of it, cool your feet off. In St. Louis, by the way, off the AstroTurf. Never cooled them off.
With spikes on, like you didn't take them off.
It would melt the whole ice. It was just a mess.
There's Delman Young. He singled his first time. And he hits it foul. It's 0-1. Delman's single drove in the second run for the Phils.
Yeah, one of the things you like about that situation, they end up scoring those 2 runs with 2 outs. Yeah, that's the other thing. Umpires, they're hot too. Look out on taking close pitches and also check swings. And hitters always like for the umpires to, on a right-handed batter, actually ask that umpire there that's on first base, get a little help.
I think Delman felt like he had to swing at that last one because of the call by Eddings in the first breaking pitch.
Well, when they call them out there, or you think you're going to get that 3rd strike call, they better to be swinging than not, as he gets a high fastball.
One ball, 2 strikes to Young. And 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Mixing them up, change ups, fastballs. Got that curve ball that he has that's working. That's a good at bat. Work on the 3-2, especially after early strikes. This would be what you would call a solid at bat.
Toyota Major League Scoreboard, Ryan Zimmerman has hit a grand slam to give the Nationals a 5-1 lead. It's his 4th career grand slam. That game's in the bottom of the 3rd. So the hurting keeps on hurting for the Padres.
Yeah, well, that Washington national team, they're starting to heat up too, by the way.
Well, Sarge, speaking of the heat, let's take a look at our Coors Light freeze cam on a warm summer afternoon here in South Philadelphia. A lot of towels, ice down, cooling you off here at the ballpark. Yep, got to stay hydrated. Nature's Elixir is always something good to get going. Of course, the fan that we showed you before. Sarge, you were at Wrigley Field. They use that hose to cool the fans down out in the bleachers all the time.
Well, I tell you, it was hot. It gets hot everywhere.
Coors Light Freeze Cam brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light. Darren Ruff struck out his first time up. A throw over Delman Young. Probably as surprised as anyone that he got a throw over at first.
That's the pitch there that he wants to swing at. You have an open stance. You got to be careful on that inside pitch. That's why it's so important to make sure you get the foot down so that you can see exactly where that pitch is. Get it down too late, you'll swing at that ball. That's a ball on the inside. Yeah, with that open stance, you're looking for that ball to be able to hit the plate in or out.
Opposite way. Will it stay fair? Let's see. It is a fair ball. It's going to kick around in the corner. Young will stop at third. It'll be a double for Darren Ruff. And the Phillies have second and third with nobody out. Carlos Ruiz will get a chance with 2 runners in scoring position. Murph, I know Darren was pretty excited to get the call to come back up here and help out this ball club.
Well, obviously, no doubt about it, guys. And, you know, we got a chance a little bit to see Darren last year in 12 games. He had 11 hits and 33 at bats, so 333, and had a couple of home runs as well. But I talked to him this morning, you know, just about getting that other opportunity. He said he was obviously very surprised when he heard the news about Ryan Howard yesterday, but excited for the opportunity. And both Ruben Amaro Jr. and Charlie Manuel said he is going to get a chance to play and show us what he can do at this level once again. So it will be interesting to watch Darren Ruff over the next couple of weeks.
Well, he got a chance to play an awful lot during spring training. He was battling with Dominic Brown. Dominic had a tremendous spring. Darren did not have a great spring. There's a breaking pitch as the infield is in halfway. But he hit well enough, and honestly, from all reports, fielded well enough at AAA that the progress was definitely made for him.
Oh, great. I've always thought he was going to be a good hitter.
Carlos lifts it to left field. Coming charging it is Justin Upton. Delman Young tags, and he's going to draw the throw. Just wasn't deep enough, and there's no way they could have taken that chance, even with the pitcher coming up. 1 out.
Yeah, you see Justin coming in, just kind of almost lobbing the ball in, knowing that Delman wasn't going to go anyplace. Just Carlos needs to get a little better pitch on that. We've talked about it. Always pressure on the pitcher. Make a decent pitch. Just don't get greedy and try and get them all. Just try and get the one. Might have a little better success.
Now the infield's in all the way with Pettibone up. He struck out his first time.
I thought for me, Darren Rupp in spring training kind of pressed a little bit. One of the reasons I thought he was going to make the club after playing winter ball and doing well there, having a great year that year. But you got to be able to harness that pressure. And Dominic Brown sure did and won the job. But this is a chance now that you get where you're not really tearing it up in AAA. Injury has presented him an opportunity to show what he can do.
Eddie Bone has struck out for the second time. 2 outs here in the 4th. And that'll bring Revere to the plate. Sarge, if Darren Ruff does hit while he's filling in for Ryan Howard, and we don't know the status of Ryan's knee injury, but if he does hit at this level, and let's say Ryan comes back after 15 days, who knows? Ruff could stay up. They could make some adjustments in the outfield.
Well, they could do that, and more importantly, you know, he would be at a stage where if they needed to move him or whatever, or thought they could do it, after other teams seeing him and know he's a major league player, be a little bit better to be able to get more for him.
Ben Revere's the hitter with 2 on, and Revere hits it out toward left center field, and Upton's not going to get it. It's going to go to the wall. 2 runs will score, and Revere's thinking 3. Simmons' throw way offline. It's a 2-run triple, the second triple of the day for the Phils, and it's 4-0 Phillies.
That's huge right there, being able to pick up both runners. That's what you call picking up your teammates, picking on that first pitch, down and in, as he splits the gap there with the 2 brothers as they come going into left center. Delman coming in. He turns it on right now. Now take a look at him as, boy, he was going to have to go down anyway as he was stumbling a little bit as he was going in to that slide. I kind of tell you, boy, that his feet were just going a lot faster maybe than the mind. Woof.
There's Rollins who takes strike 1. Well, Ben Revere continues his hot hitting. That triple is his 3rd of the season. His average is at 297 with his 1 for 3 today. 0-2 to Rollins.
That's a huge hit. Big game. They really need this game here to win that series. This is what keeps the momentum on your side when you're able to get those 2 out base hits.
Rollins hits one out toward left center field. Upton is there, Justin, and he makes the one-headed catch. Side is retired, but the damage is done again. Ben Revere from the leadoff spot shoots the triple to left center field. It was his 3rd of the season. It brought home Delman Young from 3rd, Darren Rupp from 2nd. Well, it's been a good couple of months for Ben Revere, and it continues. He's used his speed, and he's used his overall ability. Pettibone will go to work against Brian McCann, who has the only hit today, and he delivers a strike. McCann is now 7 for 9 in this series. And that'll go foul. And it's 0-2. That hose we showed you before in the Coors Light freeze cap, you need to throw the hose on this guy, at least in this series. I mean, he's just been smoking hot.
Well, you know, only injuries have caused him where he hasn't been able to have the numbers he usually has, but he always hits against the Phillies. At least we've always seen him do just that. He's got great mechanics, stays in on left-handed pitchers as well as right-handers, and has a game plan going up to that plate. Usually stays on the fastball. And will adjust on some of the off-speed pitches. What you call protecting the plate. Not an aggressive swing. When you have 2 strikes, as a hitter, you try and stay back. That was a fastball on the outside. He just kind of spoiled that and fouled it off.
Down the right field line, and that is a foul ball. Well, Delman tried. He tried to throw it to that young lady there, and she just she just couldn't handle it, much to the chagrin of the guy next to her. The guy took his hat off, and he's trying not to laugh. The guy with the glasses. Here's the 2-2 pitch, and it's fouled back.
I want to make sure it's really either in or out. Don't want to leave it out over the plate.
That wasn't a bad pitch right there.
Yeah. You get them up and in where you can't extend your hands. Those are good pitches. You get them up and you leave it out over the plate, especially anything that's off speed, you're asking for problems.
Well, that was the 10th pitch of this at bat to McCann, and it's full 3-2.
Yeah, this guy gives you solid at bat. McCann does. It's the other thing, this heat, that's what wears you down. You're fouling these pitchers off. You're doing the one, all the movement.
Yeah, he just served that one into left field.
That's just serious hitting right there. And you're looking at a guy fouling off balls inside, but notice though, he stayed right with his game plan. Was able to serve that into left field. You don't hit a ball into left field like that if you're pulling off the ball. Take a look at it. That's solitary. He actually goes that way to left field, almost one-handing the ball. Taking what the pitcher gives you is what it's all about.
So McCann's aboard. Dan Uglo popped out his first time, is now the hitter. And Uglo rips it down the left field line. That's a fair ball, and it's going down toward the corner. McCann does not run all that well, so they'll stop him at third as Dominic Brown's throw comes in, cut off by Utley. Second and third with nobody out. All-Star voting isn't over quite yet. You can vote for the final player for each league's roster until Thursday, July 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Go to Phillies.com and cast your All-Star Game final vote for the final 2 All-Stars for the game in New York. Vote at Phillies.com or on your mobile phone. And you see the 5 players from each league. Poor Adrian Gonzalez. 2 Dodgers. Puig's going to get most of the votes from the Dodger fans. At least you would think that. Dave Robertson, the relief pitcher for the Yankees, is among the final player in the American League. Of course, Freddie Freeman from the Atlanta Braves, Ian Desmond from the Nationals, all on that list.
Well, it's just an honor to be mentioned, especially during this time of the year. It just shows you that you've been having a good year. Obviously, you can't pick everyone, and I've definitely been in that category where if, hey, you could pick one more guy, I'd be the guy, but hey, it wasn't that way. So what it does, makes you play even harder that second half for some of the guys that won't be picked. Not to say that they aren't deserving.
Phillies play the infield back up 4-0 with nobody out here in the top of the fifth. B.J. Upton is down 0-1.
Got to make good pitches, control damage right now. Pitches. That ball hit right at a fielder or back to you.
Rich Doobie and Pettibone continue to work an awful lot in between starts on the secondary pitches, like that changeup you just saw. Trying to get him an out pitch, so in a spot like this, he can get that hitter to go fishing after a tough breaking ball or a tough changeup and not sit on the fastball in an RBI situation.
Yeah, well, for me too here, you can get a high fastball out of the zone. It's one of those guys that will strike out. Slider, like you mentioned, is a good pitch.
And a called strike three, a changeup that came back over the outside part of the plate. Oh, that's a gutsy pitch.
Pretty good movement on it. You want it in that spot. Don't want it going any further. He starts it outside. Take a look at it. Look at the frame job, too. Carlos Ruiz very seldom moves the glove. Almost just keeps it right there. Huge pitch.
Well, Doug Eddings now asked for time, and he just threw somebody out of the ball game. I don't know if it was Freddie Gonzalez, it was B.J. Upton. If it was Upton, they'll throw him. It wasn't Upton, they'll throw him out now because he's coming running out of the dugout. I'm sure it was B.J. Upton. Freddie Gonzalez was ejected the other day by Angel Hernandez after he argued in defense of Gerald Laird on balls and strikes. He has not had a very good year, B.J. Upton. That was an awfully close pitch to take 2 strikes.
Well, he has an open stance, and when you're open like that, anything that's away is going to seem like it's a ball. Well, he hears voices, say, hey, that's enough. That mask come off. Look out. He's getting ready to scream it out. You are out of here.
Well, the second Braves player to be ejected from a ball game this weekend for arguing balls and strikes. Angel Hernandez threw out Gerald Laird the other night.
There's that frustration that comes in, but again, may have been a ball, but just a little bit too close to take. You saw McCann and his at bat, how the close pitches, he was fouling those balls off.
Chris Johnson takes low, 1 ball, no strikes.
Can't leave it up to the umpire, especially if you already know the zone has been a little bit off. Want to more or less you take over that situation. Yeah, it's just a good pitch. I mean, you want to be able to hit that pitch, plain and simple. Get a little closer to the plate. Got to make the adjustment yourself.
Tough one to take if you're Chris Johnson.
Well, especially after the ones that he's called. And just want to keep making your pitches.
2 balls, 1 strike. And that's a foul ball off the railing beyond the camera well, and it's 2-2. Budweiser reminds you to designate a driver. Be a good sport.
Guilty.
On the outside corner, a fastball at 92, same spot as Upton's strike, just a different pitch.
Oh boy, just filthy. Down by the knees on the outside part of the plate. No adjustment and moving over. See you later. Can't argue on that one. Well, it's just a tough pitcher's pitch right there. I mean, it's just, you get those 2 strikes on you. That's why it's so important for pitchers to be able to do that. Can widen the zone. That particular one, put a little paint on the outside corner.
Well, here's Medlin, who shoots it the opposite way of base hit. How about that? Ugg will be held at third. A run scores. He did such a great job to get 2 hitters in Upton and Johnson, and then Chris Medlin just serves one into left field for an RBI single.
Well, nothing special about it. Fastball, although special because the pitcher ended up driving in a run with 2 outs. That's clutch hitting. Watch it as he serves it the other way. He gets his foot down. Clean single and an RBI. Not going to take a chance on Dominic Brown, however.
Second RBI of the year for Medlin. His first one came on a solo home run. Simmons lines one, caught by Michael Young, positioned perfectly over at third. Now this side is retired. Only 1 run scores after the Braves get second and third with nobody out. Simmons, well, he squared this one up beautifully, but right at the Phil's third baseman. We'll go to the bottom of the 5th. Phillies up by 3. In Philadelphia, July 30th, 31st, and Thursday, August 1st. Some interesting stuff happening during the course of that 3-game series. The first night is Fiat Italian Heritage Celebration, and then Thursday the 1st, the Brad Lidge Retirement Ceremony. A free photo print for all fans, compliments of Toyota. Brad will officially retire as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies.
Well, congratulations.
Yep. So again, Tuesday is the Fiat Italian Heritage Celebration, then Brad Lidge's retirement. Reed Johnson will take over in center field for B.J. Upton as we go to the bottom of the 5th. So there's only one Upton left out there, Sarge.
Yeah, well,
it's the bigger of the 2.
The thing is, again, though, when you look at that, you see it, and you say, well, maybe it was a little bit of a ball on the outside, but it's too close to take. And catching maybe a little part of that plate. But again, with that open stance, any ball is going to seem outside. That's why it's important to get the foot down and be in a good hitting position so you can tell where the pitch is, in or out.
Well, speaking of a good hitting position, here comes Chase Utley. He's 1 for 2 today. Utley singled and scored in the 1st, struck out his last time up against Medlin. It begins the 5th with 66 pitches.
Medlin struck him out on a breaking pitch, making the adjustment after serving up a single fastball. A lot of times you got to do it. Even in the game, making an adjustment. Hitter to pitcher.
Swing and bunt. Spinning to the left of the mound. One away.
There's that little change up.
Utley doesn't seem any the worse for wear after that foul ball off his ankle in game 1. I'm sure it's bothering him, but it hasn't limited him at all.
Yeah, he never let you know, even if it was, to be quite honest. Never makes excuses.
Dominic Brown off the end of the bat, a foul ball. It's 0-1. Chase was here early today looking at video as he usually is. Phillies clubhouse was closed earlier today for a meeting. There wasn't a whole lot going on, obviously, before the ball game. 1 ball and 1 strike to Dominic Brown. And it's 2-1.
Every time a batter gets a pitch up and in, it gets their attention right away.
Nice play off that carom. Marcy, who was been here for a couple of years, is one of the Phillies ball girls. Able to handle that one off the cement below that half fence. And the 2-2 pitch to Brown. And he lines it deep to right field. Hayward going back. It is gone! Just over the small fence, Dominic Brown, his 23rd homer of the year. And the Phillies lead it 5-1.
Well, we just talked about how that up and in pitch will get your attention. Well, here's another fastball that's inside. Take a look at how he clears his hips. That's how you do it when you want to be able to hit the ball on the inside. Pull it in those hands. Didn't get all of it, but he got enough of it. He is just so tremendously quick inside.
Great catch.
Staying on that fastball. Sorry about that timing. You're right. It was a great catch as he clapped his hands because he knew, hey, he had won the battle on that particular time.
Michael Young rolls one up the third base line. Johnson's barehanded play in time. That was a good play. There are 2 outs. By the way, that home run by Dominic Brown won $100 for April Law of Philadelphia in our McDonald's home run jackpot. And that Phillies fan who made a wonderful catch out there in right field will get that ball autographed by Dominic Brown, which is, well, that's a great keepsake.
Well, I tell you, that's about as great a swing as you're going to see. Really setting a pitcher up, looking him or daring him to throw inside. That's the way it would appear that Brown is out there looking, and then he's smart enough to serve the ball out in the left field when you pitch him away.
Delman Young, a grounder is short. Side is retired. 3 groundouts in the inning for the Phillies, but there was 1 ball they got up in the air. It was off the bat of Dominic Brown. And for Dominic, his 23rd home run of the year, he now has 62 runs batted in. The Phillies lead is back to 4 as we go to the 6th. the All-Stars. Cliff Lee behind double-digit wins and a dominating first half, very different from a year ago for the Phillies, has earned his 4th All-Star selection during a great career. Dominic Brown, who was voted 4th on the players' ballot, was also selected to the National League team for his first trip to the Midsummer Classic. Dom continues his sensational 2013 season, and Cliff Lee continues to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. And their All-Star selections are brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. Well, it seems appropriate that we would highlight Dominic Brown and Cliff Lee, but Dominic in particular with his 2 RBIs today, a triple, a home run. Phillies lead 5-1 as we start the 6th. Jason Hayward, Justin Upton, Freddie Freeman. Cliff became a 10-game winner on Friday night.
I tell you, couldn't be happier for him being able to turn things around the way that he has. Talking about Dominic Brown. He's hard enough to be able to play in left field. And again, he's the one that said it. Give me 600 at bats. We won't be talking about any left field. And sure enough, not talking about that fielding because he's smoking the ball. I had asked him earlier whether or not his dad is kind of believing what he's doing. Is, well, getting more arguments there. It's hot for everybody.
There's low ball 4. Good. Keep talking about his
But
dad,
anyway,
son.
his mom said, hey, she believed he was going to be an All-Star. They continue to argue. That's what happens too when you start to lose a little bit. Is Rich Doobie's going out. We're going to settle him down just a little. But anyway, his dad still hadn't believed maybe he was still an All-Star kind of caliber player. And I said, hey, you want me to call your dad and kind of explain it to him? And in layman's terms, he says, well, no. He says, but my mom, she believes, and I'm sure right now his dad believes because he has been really tearing it up. And the rest of let's face it, the league knows, and players voting him 4th, they're starting to wake up to a guy that, boy, I'm telling you, becoming a big giant, and it has been great to see the development of a Dominic Brown.
Diekman and DeFreitas both throwing in the pen for the Phillies. Now Justin Upton, he's 0 for 2. Phillies lead it by 4. 89 pitches for Pettibone. Threw 102 the other day before he ran out of gas against the Pirates. And Upton bunts. And that'll go foul.
Wow.
That's the 3-hitter in the Braves lineup.
I'm not agreeing with that at all. We're in that 3rd spot. This is the time here that you're really trying to, if not hit that ball in the gap. I mean, obviously getting on, but you want that 3rd hitter to try and get you a little closer back in the game. It's an awful attempt, too, by the way, and bunting the ball sideways.
It's not deep. It's playable for Delman Young. And there's one away. And Hayward goes back to first. Tomorrow at PHL 17, wake up with a show that's worth waking up to. It's a fresh look at pop culture, headlines, trends, and viral videos. Eye-opener Monday morning starting at 6 on PHL 17.
Now, the other reason, too, I'm saying that, the ball's really hot. I mean, it's hot today. Ball really travels. You don't want that 3, 4, 5 guys unless it's a situation in that 9th maybe where it's tied and you're trying to get that runner from 2nd over to 3rd. Other than that, I don't know. I got to have you swinging.
I would think the Braves are in agreement with you, Sarge.
Well, we talk about the scoreboard kind of dictates the what you want to do at the plate, in the field, whether or not you should dive, whether or not you should bunt.
Out of play, 2-1.
This is when it kind of tests you to make good pitches right around that 6th and 7th inning, especially when it's a hot day. You've been pitching quite a bit already. Time you got to really reach back in this heat. I don't know if he's going to be going much longer. You got to be careful with this pitch.
It's a little floater that's going to go into left field, a base hit. And that'll put 2 on with 1 out. And it'll bring McCann to the plate. Charlie Manuel may think about making a change here. It's 96 pitches. Yep, here he comes.
Yeah, just the at bat too that McCann had against him the last at bat. He fouled off so many different pitches before hitting that ball into left field.
Well, Charlie's going to have to make a change. This is the second trip to the mound for the Phillies. So Pettibone is done after 5 1/3. And he'll give way to Jake Diekman. Nice round of applause for Jonathan Pettibone.
Yeah, good effort.
5 1/3. It's an All-Star game as the best of the American League take on the National League's top players. Don't miss the action Tuesday, July 16th at 7:30 Eastern on Fox. Pettibone, 5 1/3, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. He scattered 5 hits. The 2 runners are his responsibility. And now he'll give way to Jake Diekman to face Brian McCann. It'll be Diekman against McCann, and then maybe DeFreitas against Ugla, depending on what happens with this at-bat. Diekman's numbers, 10 strikeouts so far in 11 games. Obviously, you want your starter to go at least 6. You prefer 7 innings, but Pettibone in the last couple of innings has really had to work to get through this Braves lineup. And he was at 96 pitches, and this guy has been on a torrid pace, Brian McCann, against the Phillies this series.
Yeah, I thought Charlie made a great move in bringing him in here. On a change, lefty against lefty. And not only that, against Pettibone, he ended up having a great at bat his last time when he faced him and Falling off pitch after pitch.
It's 0-2 against a tough left-handed hitter.
This is when he's able to get that hard slider after 2 good fastballs. Get him to expand that zone.
He does get the breaking pitch. Dominic Brown is there. And there are 2 outs. Boy, a good job by Diekman. That is a tough left-handed hitter to just get.
Yeah, well, that's what you want. He'll come in, get that one batter. Charlie will come out and bring in the righty against righty, and he'll do that simply because Uggla, he can hit that ball out of the ballpark. He's a fastball getter. Charlie wants to turn him around. Here's that slider I'm talking about. See how off balance? You get a hitter off balance right there, you have done your job. And that's what he did. Brought him in for one guy.
So Jake Diekman does his job. Here comes Justin DeFreitas to pitch the rest of the 6th inning with the Phillies up by 4. By Xfinity are coming up Thursday, July 11th and Friday, July 12th, after the Nationals game and after the White Sox game. Get your tickets for both of those ball games by going to Phillies.com. The Phillies, after today, have 7 games left on this homestand before the All-Star break, and there are seats available for all 7 of those games. Top of the 6th, Phillies up 5-1 on this bright sunshiny afternoon. Justin DeFreitas is now on to face Dan Uggla. Righties are hitting .271 against DeFreitas. And he delivers high, 1 ball, no strikes. Pitcher spot is due up 3rd in the bottom of the 6th. So, like Diekman, if DeFreitas can get Uggla, then his afternoon is complete.
I want to make a good pitch. Preferably down. Fastball hitter Uggla is.
Ground ball to 3rd. Michael Young is there. He'll go to 2nd to retire Freddie Freeman. So a very nice job by Jake Diekman and Justin DeFreitas to get the last 2 batters in relief of Jonathan Pettibone. We go to the bottom of the 6th. Phillies still lead it by 4. Now visit your Toyota dealer. Toyota, let's go places. By the Pennsylvania Lottery, benefits older Pennsylvanians every day. And by Mazda, we believe if it's not worth driving, it's not worth building. Well, last of the 6th inning. Little haze forming over Center City. We go to the bottom of the 6th. The Phillies lead it by 4, 5-1. It'll be Darren Ruff, Carlos Ruiz, and Jonathan Pettibone. Justin DeFreitas, in the pitcher spot. Justin DeFreitas, who's in that pitcher spot, will most likely be lifted for a pinch hitter. And that could be the pinch hitter right there, Kevin Franzen. There's Lance Nix wandering around too. Darren Ruff doubled and scored his last time. He struck out his first time. He got a nice round of applause last night when he was introduced, didn't he, Sarge?
Yeah.
He was not here at the start of the game last night because he had been called up so close to game time.
Yep.
But he arrived from Scranton. That's where Lehigh Valley was. He arrived in time to get a couple of at-bats.
Well, when you're in that minor leagues, you get the call. You don't waste any time in getting here as quick as you can.
Ground ball foul, 2-2.
It's the other way around. When you're in the major league, you get sent down to AAA. Well, kind of end up taking your time to get back to that league.
When he struck out in his first at-bat, he also ran the count to 3-2 against Medlin. It's full now here in the 6th.
Yeah, got him on a changeup that was down, maybe not even a strike.
Outside, ball 4.
It's good at bat.
For years, StubHub has been the place to find great Phillies tickets. And this season, you can get more with your tickets thanks to StubHub Fan Rewards. So get to StubHub and grab your seats today. So Ruff is aboard for Ruiz, who singled his first at bat, fly to left his last time. John McDonald's come out of the on-deck circle for the Phillies. Alex Wood. And 2 to Ruiz. J.C. Ramirez, meanwhile, is in the bullpen for the Phillies.
You see Charlie trying to get the guys there in different roles. The main thing, though, for all those youngsters, the key is to be able to come in, throw those first pitch strikes. Just makes it so much easier. You don't have that pressure. You can expand the zone. Just the opposite when you come in and you're not throwing strikes. Now you get a little bit tight. That's when you're more likely to make a bad pitch.
Other way, Ugla can't get to it. He slowed it up. Ruff will still stop at second. Slowed it up as it went out to right field. It'll be a base hit for Ruiz, his second of the game. That'll put first and second with nobody out. McDonald's coming up. What do you think about John McDonald laying down a sacrifice here?
I think that's exactly the call. That's what you want to do. Get both runners in scoring position. That ball, taking what he gives you. Nice, pretty nice drive there by Ugla. Just not able to come up with it. Take a look at him. What a great shot. That dirt flying up. Boy, oh boy. Oh, that's just terrific. More so, though, that Carlos ended up getting a hit. That's his second hit for today.
John McDonald, 3 hits overall this year in the National League. And he bunts foul.
It's pretty easy to do when you're looking at bunting a ball. You're trying to get it in the right area, and this is where you'd like to bunt it, is to your third baseman and have him field the ball so that his only play would be to first base.
They throw behind Ruff, and he gets back. 1 ball and 1 strike to John McDonald.
I tell you, it looks like he has pretty good technique. Not going out and jabbing at any of those pitches that are on the outside. I think Charlie will take him all the way, at least to 2 strikes, to try and lay this ball down to the third baseman.
And he does bunt it, bunts it foul again.
I got to tell you, I'm taking it off if I'm Charlie. You're winning the ball game 5-1. Now I'm hoping that some kind of way you can get the runners over. See how he plays it. It's just got to be a good bunt if you're bunting now. Either bunt it fair or you'll be sitting down if you're trying to bunt.
He does bunt, and he gets it down. Sacrifice is successful, and McDonald's thrown out by McCann. Second and third. First sack of the year for John McDonald.
Good job.
And it goes 2-4 on the putout. And it brings Revere up with a chance to drive it a couple more. But he's not going to face Chris Medley.
No. Good job there with 2 strikes under pressure. There's that technique as he deadens the ball, even though it goes right back to the pitcher. Look at that. Hands above the ball. Have that barrel above the ball. That's what you want to do to get it on the ground. He did a terrific job. McCann coming in, making the play. That was his only play as McDonald ends up moving both runners. Good time to be able to try and drive in a couple of more runs.
Well, the task is a little more difficult for Ben Revere because the Braves are bringing in a left-hander and Alex Wood. So we've got a pitching change. The Phillies lead at 5-1 with 1 man down here in the bottom half of the 6th inning. And Revere, who has a couple RBIs already, is going to go out hunting for some more when we come back. game for the Braves. Wood, who was selected in last year's draft at a University of Georgia, has pitched in 13 games so far this year for the Braves. 0-2, an ERA of 3.24. John McDonald getting high fives. Just barely missed Dominic Brown.
He's got to get up on that little stool ladder there.
Braves will play the infield in. And Revere takes outside.
I like that. Put your hand up so high, he's got to jump up to get it, and then he misses it, realizes it. That'll come back. It was a tough job, however. Punt that ball. Did a good job.
Alex Wood was selected in the second round by the Braves last year, the 85th pick overall. Comes in with 2 runners in scoring position and at 1 ball and 1 strike. Certainly has a little quirkiness in the way he delivers. We saw that during spring training.
I want to make contact, see what happens. Preferably somewhere deep in the outfield. See whether or not Charlie has them going on contact.
Outside. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Revere. Revere's 1 for 3 today. His 2-run triple, his last time up, his 3rd triple of the year. He has 16 runs batted in.
For me, I'm not going on contact with 1 out.
Particularly when you have a switch hitter that can bat next.
Exactly.
A righty against a left-hander.
Yeah, just trying to get more runs where you're going to maybe be able to break it open and relax a little bit. Big pitch.
Hasn't been a whole lot of relaxation this year.
Well, the whole year. You're absolutely right. That's because you haven't been able to score a lot of runs where you feel comfortable.
And Revere is down looking. Well, he's been calling the outside part of the plate against the Braves hitters. They haven't liked it. He calls the outside part of the plate there against Revere.
Now, you make a real good point. You've been seeing this all day long. Even though it might have been off the plate a little too close to take. Want to maybe try and foul that off so you get a better pitch.
Oh, 2 outs. The switch hitting Jimmy Rollins, who's 0 for 3. Ruff's over at 3rd. Ruiz is at 2nd. Rollins has not gotten the ball on the ground all day. He's popped out to first. He's flied to right, and he's flied to left.
Yeah, a lot of times when he's popping that ball up, that elbow is flying up. You want to try and stay either through the ball or on top of it. Don't want to hit underneath it.
In the dirt, gets away from McCann. Here comes Darren Ruff. McCann's got it. His throw goes right on by Wood. Here comes Carlos Ruiz. It's 7-1 Phillies.
Huge. Be able to pick up those 2 runs without a hit. That's why you stay alert. That's why, too, when you're pitching, runner on 3rd base, takes a lot of that guesswork out, especially if pitchers understand you can't block a ball. That's a tough ball to block. He wasn't trying to catch it, but he threw that ball away once that happened. Oh, well. Horse out of the barn.
Rollins lines it to left. Upton reaches down, and he makes the catch. And the side is retired. How big is that wild pitch in the air to Brian McCann?
Whew.
Gigantic at this point. The Phillies scored 2. Here in the 6th, we go to the 7th. They lead it 7-1.
good game by the Phillies today, scoring another 2 runs with 2 outs. Their last 4 runs have come. Actually, in the first inning, they scored 2 runs with 2 outs, too. So that's really outstanding way to play a game on a day like this, especially as you get those 2 out runs, and that can really demoralize the other side. Brian McCann, he stays hot, but Jake Diekman got him out in a big spot. Chris Medlin threw 5 in the 3rd innings. That's what he was able to do. 7 earned runs charged to him today. And Dominic Brown, another home run, his 23rd, a big triple early in the game to set up those 2 runs, or actually knock in one and set up the other one in the first inning. And Jonathan Pettibone, he went out there and gutted out a really tough outing today on a brutal afternoon.
Changes for the Phillies. John McDonald stays in to play third base. Michael Young moves from third base over to first base. And the new pitcher is right-hander J.C. Ramirez in his 6th ball game overall. And Ramirez's responsibilities have increased as his time in the big leagues has increased. And he'll face the bottom 3rd of the order for the Braves.
Well, they need a lot of outs from the bullpen today, and they got 2 big ones last inning and have since added 2 runs.
Yeah, great job by Diekman and DeFreitas, as you said, Wheels. The way they were able to get some tough hitters out.
Yeah, where their specialty is the home run ball, and if they hit a home run there, it's 5-4, either one of them.
Reed Johnson leads it off. Johnson came on when B.J. Upton was ejected from the game.
One thing the Braves don't do a whole lot of is hit with runners in scoring position with 2 outs. That's not a strong point for them. They hit a lot of homers, and they made good pitches on them, both those guys. The thing that amazed me was Charlie. He knows John McDonald. 2-strike bunt from a position player. Are you kidding me? And he gets it down, and then they get the 2 runs after that. That doesn't happen. But he trusted him so much and had him before. And he always talks about fun. He's not a big-time hitter, but he says fundamentally he's as good as anybody. And how many times you see a guy get a 2-strike bunt down like that?
Proved to be very valuable in that inning.
Oh. Yeah, with that wild pitch.
Reed Johnson lifts it out to center. 1 out. Chris Johnson's coming up. He's joining us up here in the Hall of Fame Club. His name is Greg Murphy, and he's along with the Major League Notebook.
All right, T-Mac, thank you very much. Brought to you by Gwynedd Mercy College. It was a strange situation that cost the Giants a run last night when in the first inning they batted out of order. Buster Posey came up to bat 3rd and then laced an RBI double, but Dodgers manager Don Mattingly saw that on his lineup card it was supposed to be Sandoval batting 3rd, so the umpires talked it over. They were indeed out of order. It cost them a run and an out, so a strange situation for the San Francisco Giants. And meanwhile, the Los Angeles Dodgers have made a move. We knew Ricky Nolasco would be moving somewhere from the Marlins. Well, he has ended up in L.A. Nolasco is 5 for 8 with a 3.88 ERA, and he should help the L.A. Dodgers as they make a late-season push for the postseason, guys.
They have so many starting pitchers that are on the disabled list.
Yeah.
Injuries have been a problem for them. In fact, Matt Kemp has got a bad shoulder once again, too. Not that that matters with the Nolasco trade, but he was rumored to be out there when we were there, even before we were there. We were in San Diego. Everybody kept saying that he was going to be with the Dodgers when the Phillies arrived in Southern California.
Yeah, I think it's a really good move for the Dodgers to shore up that pitching staff. So.
Chris Johnson hooks one down the left field line, and that's the first run allowed this year by J.C. Ramirez. Solo home run, and it's a 7-2 ball game.
And that word you just used there, Tom, is really huge. Solo home run. Because that's what the Braves do. They hit a lot of home runs, and you hope they hit them without men on base. J.C. Ramirez just throws a lot of fastballs, and you learn you don't run a whole lot of fastballs in on right-handed hitters at this level unless you get it way in, and he just opened up and hit it out.
So Tyler Pasternicki now will pinch hit for the Braves with 1 out and 1 run across the plate here in the 7th. One ball, no strikes. Pasternicki was the starting shortstop for the Braves last year. And then Simmons took over. Simmons just a way better defensive shortstop. At least he's shown that. And he's just Solid player all the way around. Pasternicki made a few errors last year, which is part of the reason why they dipped down to get Simmons, not in AAA but AA.
Carlos Ruiz trying to get him to throw some breaking balls, backed up sliders there, and they're both pretty good. You just can't keep throwing fastballs, even though it's a nice lead. Fastballs are good. Try and mix in some other things, see if this kid can establish a breaking ball.
1-2 pitch. Out toward right field, and that'll drop for a hit. He just flicked that one right into right field. These lucky fans are today's Citizens 7. They will each receive a prize pack courtesy of Citizens Bank. Citizens Bank with the most 7-day branches in the Philadelphia area. To find a branch near you, visit citizensbank.com.
What they're trying to do is have Ramirez get him through the 7th, go Bastardo in the 8th, and Papelbon in the 9th. And Ramirez has 6 runs to work with, now 5.
Simmons is 0 for 3. Came up at a big spot in the game last time. A run had scored, and the Braves were threatening with runners on first and second against a tiring Pettibone, and he lined one right at Michael Young at third.
Line's an understatement. That ball was really crushed.
Line drive, caught by, dropped by Utley. Can he still make a play? He does. Oh no, he's safe at first. He will score that a base hit. Boy, I thought he got it over there in time. That was a bang bang play, no doubt about that. Dana DeMuth was right there.
Yeah, and Utley, of course, dropping that ball.
What a swing. He had a double play, too, if he had caught that ball.
Sure, you're out of the inning. On these hot days, here it is. And he catches it. He's going to catch that easily. Double play.
Oh, he's out. He was out. Well, it was close. Yeah, you know what? Did look like he got him, but it was a lot closer on that angle than I thought on the front one.
Real close. Really can't tell when the ball's in the glove at that point. But should be out of the inning. What you don't want to do is give these guys a little room because they hit so many home runs.
So runners on first and second with one out here at the top of the 7th. Jason Hayward is the batter. Utley was charged with an error in yesterday's game. That one's hit right back through the middle. It'll sneak into center field, a base hit. Pasternicki's going to score. And now it's a 7-3 ball game. These 2 runs are looming even larger in the Phillies' half of the 6th.
Well, the best laid plans are going to have to get somebody up now.
Yeah, they've got Bastardo up in the pen now. And Justin Upton's now the hitter.
Well, you have Freeman and McCann coming up too. That's what happens when you have these young players in the bullpen, and it's a learning experience, and you roll the dice. And in Ramirez's defense, he should be out of this inning.
Sure. Yeah, it's not going to show it on his line, but that ball could have easily been scored an error to Utley. And as the replay showed, it would have been a double play. As the replay also showed, the runner was out at first. 0-2 to Justin Upton.
Boy, he's throwing hard stuff away to him. He is pulling off and is really vulnerable away. If he can get more stuff out there.
He got it. Foul tip. Ruiz hangs on. 2 outs.
There's just no way he can reach anything. He has no intention of hitting the ball the other way, even with 2 strikes. Now what do you do?
Well, Ramirez just looked into the dugout. Ruiz is going to go out. I think they're going to buy some time for Bastardo.
Freeman just took a look around. Everything was away, away, away.
It's a good pitch.
It's a fastball away, and he foul tips it into Chooch's glove.
Charlie's getting up from his chair, so they are just killing time. Doug Eddings is walking away from the mound. Here comes Charlie Manuel. And he's going to go with the left-hander. At least you could assume that. Yep, there's the signal to the pen. So Bastardo's coming on to face Freddie Freeman. The hope is he gets him here, and then Bastardo may stay in the ball game in the 8th inning too. So J.C. Ramirez is charged with 2 runs. He has the 2 runners on base that are his responsibility. With 2 outs here in the 7th, Phillies lead it by 4, and Antonio Bastardo's coming into the ball game. Three-game series, and Antonio Bastardo will come on to face Freddie Freeman. Bastardo 2-2, a 2.79 earned run average, and he's on with Simmons at second base and Jason Hayward at first. J.C. Ramirez charged with the first 2 runs that he's allowed as a big leaguer. 2 are his responsibility. Every time the Phillies retire the opposing team, 1, 2, 3. Comcast will make a contribution to Phillies charities. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports, giving you all your favorite sports all year long. There are the base runners, and Freddie Freeman is up. He's 0 for 10 lifetime against Antonio Bastardo.
That's another reason why they did that was 6 strikeouts.
Balls, 1 strike.
Yeah, Freeman, he went up with a swing against a guy that he knows handles him because he doesn't want to get behind him. He went up there trying to do damage on the first pitch. McCann on deck is 1 for 7 off him. They hope that McCann will lead off the 8th. I wouldn't believe that. That was either a perfect pitch or a little outside. There may be some chirping from that dugout again. Got 2 fastballs so far. Maybe slider here. Blocked by Chooch on the breaking ball.
Swing and a miss. He got it with a slider. 0 for 11 against Bastardo. Slamming his bat down. The Braves leave a couple on base. They scored 2. Time to stretch here at Citizens Bank Park. The Phillies lead game 3 of this series. In a very important homestand, it's 7-3 Phils as we go to the bottom of the 7th inning. And I believe it's time for a new battle. All right, Wills, here's your question one more time. Which Phillies pitcher did Freddie Freeman hit his first major league home run off?
Guy who played catch with Rich Doobie out in right field today, and that was fun to watch him just walk out of the dugout and go out there. Number 34, Roy Halladay.
Roy Halladay is correct.
Hit it in the bullpen out there.
It was a long one. It was kind of a game that was pretty much over at the point of his home run, but for him, it was something to remember. Hitting a home run against one of the best pitchers in the game, in Roy Halladay. Well, the Phillies lead it 7-3 as we go to the bottom of the 7th here at Citizens Bank Park. And the Braves will turn things over to the veteran Luis Ayala. And he'll face Chase Utley, Dominic Brown, and Michael Young. Luis Ayala has thrown a lot of ball games in this ballpark with the Montreal Expos, the Washington Nationals, the New York Mets, and now with the Atlanta Braves. 0-1 this year, an ERA of 3.86. This is his 6th ball game.
Well, it's time now for our Hyundai defensive plays of the game. Sometimes these plays can come from the mound. And how about the Phillies bullpen with some big outs today? Jake Diekman came in, got ahead of Brian McCann, then got him on that slider with a weak swing. Justin DeFreitas throws a breaking ball there, and it's a hard ground ball right at Michael Young. He gets Dan Uggla out, gets out of that inning. And then last inning in a big spot with 2 men on, got ahead of Freddie Freeman with fastballs. I think he thought one of them was not a strike. He chases with 2 strikes there. Great job by the pen, our Hyundai defensive plays of the game. And as Tom said, Bastard will be back out there in the 8th.
There's Freddie Freeman.
It's a hot day, and he's even hotter right now.
It was an awfully close pitch. A lot of the pitches that have been called strikes by Doug Eddings that players have barked at have been close. B.J. Upton was ejected earlier in the game. Ben Revere was called out on strikes in his last at bat on a pitch he thought was wide. Bastardo will take it, and he'll keep himself cool, or try to.
Well, what it did to Freeman, I think, that really has him fried out there on this hot day, is it got him in the hole 0-2 to a guy he struggles against. And Bastardo took advantage of that and got him with a slider.
Chase Utley will lead it off for the Phillies. It'll be Utley, Dominic Brown, Michael Young against Ayala, as we mentioned. outside. 1 ball, no strikes.
Those have done a nice job of adding on in this game as it's proceeded. After the first inning, they didn't score for a while. In the last 3 innings, they have. And scoring those 2 out runs.
How about getting those 2 runs in the wild pitch and the subsequent error on Brian McCann?
Well, 2 outs. Huge. Only run they scored today without 2 outs was Dominic Brown's 1-out home run in the 5th. So 6 2-out runs today. And he hit a tracer.
Yeah, that guy caught it out in right field. I don't know how his hands didn't hurt. And they may have. There he is. Utley fouls it. 2-2.
He fouls balls off his feet and his legs, and you never know it until you see the replays because he doesn't react, and it has to hurt. I don't know if he did it just then or not, but it sounded like it, especially the direction that it took. Ayala, what a workhorse he was with the old Montreal Expos and then with Washington. Then he blew out his arm in the World Baseball Classic that year. Had Tommy John surgery and bouncing around, and now here he comes again. Sinker ball pitcher. Sinkers, cutters. Pitch every day for a number of years.
Yeah, Frank Robinson used him and guys like John Roush. I mean, used them often for the Expos and eventually the Nationals.
Ayala, just a little kind of a short arm guy, but a strike thrower.
Utley lifts it down the right field line. Jason Hayward has room, and he makes the catch in the middle of a very wide warning track. And there's 1 out.
Talking about Dominic's home run earlier, the newly minted All-Star. It was a fastball, cutter, or something moved a little bit at the end, it looked like. And then as Tom said, this guy makes a great play out there. What a catch.
Oh, for that home run, and each one hit by the Phillies this year. 1 tree will be planted by the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society as part of Home Runs for Trees. Part of Plant 1 Million, a partnership between the Phillies, PHS, and Aramark. Home Runs for Trees is part of an initiative to restore the region's tree coverage. For more information, go to phillies.com/red goes green.
Looks like they're getting ready out there again too. By that shot. And here comes our guy again. Look out.
Outside, 1 ball, 1 strike.
He does wear out that area in right field. There they are.
That one's out toward left center. It's shallow. Justin Upton comes running in to make the catch. And there are 2 outs. Michael Young is due up for the Phillies this Sunday when the Phillies take on the White Sox. All fans 15 and over will receive the Phillies travel mug, compliments of Pennsylvania Auto Theft Prevention Authority. For tickets for all 3 games against the Sox, go to phillies.com and purchase your tickets. And that's a fair ball for Michael Young between the bag and Freddie Freeman. So he's aboard with his first hit. 2-out single for Michael.
Delvin Young will get another bat. They'll probably take him out for defense in the 8th inning.
Tillman has an RBI single today. He's 1 for 2.
Oh, 2 outs again. Here's their spot in this game. Starters in the on-deck circle, pitchers in the 7th hole. So they really don't even have to pitch to Young here if they don't want to. They know Bastardo's going to hit. He's out there trying to figure out which bat to use.
That's funny.
Giving one back.
Almont's warming up. That might be more of a decoy than anything else that they may pitch in.
Yeah, Braves know that.
Broke his bat. Ground ball past the mounds. Simmons throws on the run. And the side is retired. 6-3 on the putout. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left for the Braves. So as we put the bottom of the 7th in the books, Antonio Bastardo put his bat away, find his hat and glove, and go back to work. Fourth of July event. Choose an innovative Nissan and save big on our fuel-efficient lineup. Bonus cash ends soon. Buy McDonald's. I'm loving it. And buy Chevrolet. Visit your local dealer at ChevyDealer.com. John Mayberry takes over in right field for the Phillies. As we go to the top of the 8th inning, the Phillies with a 4-run lead. And Antonio Bastardo stays in the game to face Brian McCann. Almon has sat down in the Phillies bullpen. That one is ripped to right field. Mayberry going back. It's over his head. Second time in this series, McCann has hit the fence and has a single to show for it.
Another 3-hit game for him.
3 for 4. He is 9 for 12 in the series.
And he likes it here. This is a big inning right now for Bastardo because they're really strapped in that bullpen right now. He needs to get through this inning and then get it over to Papelbon. And you could even see Papelbon could conceivably get up in this inning late if in fact there's a problem.
Dan Uggla 1 for 3. Yeah, I think this has to be one of those more than an inning saves for Papelbon the way things are.
Well, unless unless things go fast here.
The ball was hit pretty fast.
And what you're dealing with now, all these right-handed hitters too. and they're right-handed off the bench. They have a switch hitter available. Turdoslavich.
Wills, you're doing an excellent job with that name.
Worked on that all night last night.
Joe Simpson, who does the television for the Braves, said, "Yeah, we haven't really gotten that name down yet either."
Is that what he said?
Well, he's got a nickname that they call him, but we can't really
no.
hang with that nickname the way they do. No balls, 1 strikes. Down and away, 1 ball, 1 strike. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, the Cardinals lead the Marlins 3-2. In the bottom of the 6th, Carlos Beltran is going to the All-Star game in New York. 2 for 3 with a run scored.
It'd be fun for him to go back to New York as an All-Star after all those real good years he had with the Mets. Really need Bastardo to step up in this inning and be big. I know there's a lot of emotion involved last inning. You get the guy out. Now he just waves Carlos Ruiz out. Ruiz was already in a crouch, and he didn't really feel like getting up again on a day like this. Good job by Uglo. He's not normally patient. Well, there you go. That's ball 4. Or at least it should have been. Back-to-back guys named Johnson coming up.
Swing and a miss. He got it with a sweeping slider.
Well, we're just talking about Ugla being so patient to get the 3-1, and then he chases ball 4 and 5. But that was a heck of a slider he threw in there. Really fooled him on a 3-2 count. 3-2 pitch with a 4-run lead. Ugla thinks he's going to get a fastball here, and I've gotten the count to the point where I can get us a couple of runs with 1 swing. Outstanding pitch.
Reed Johnson flied to center his only time up. Came on for B.J. Upton earlier when Upton was ejected. And it's no balls and 1 strike. Johnson wasn't biting on that pitch. 1 ball, 1 strike to him. Johnson has been one of the best pinch hitters in baseball the last year or so.
This guy's a very good utility player. Play different positions. Really a hard-nosed guy. As you said, Tom, a good pinch hitter.
And bullpen action for the Braves. David Carpenter is warming up. He pitched in last night's ball game.
Oh, he can strike you out. He's got nasty stuff.
Two balls, 1 strike. In the dirt, gets away from Ruiz, and McCann will go up to second. And a wild pitch for Bastardo.
See Reed much more patient. Just trying to get on base.
put 2 on with 1 out, and Chris Johnson, who homered his last time up, will come up to the plate. Now, no sign of Papelbon or anyone else just yet. I asked Rich Duty the other day about using Papelbon for more than 1 inning. He said, honestly, we just don't like to do it. But there are situations that sometimes call for it.
Yeah, and they really don't want to do it unless there's 2 outs in the 8th. So they may get him up, and they don't want to use him.
Johnson's 1 for 3. Chris Johnson, that is. Runners on first and second. They got him to be a little anxious. Here's the home run his last time up.
Yeah, this guy really had a good year, and Ramirez runs a fastball in a little bit, doesn't get in enough, and he hits it out down the left field line.
He's hit in 8 consecutive games now with that home run.
Joe Simpson's favorite players on deck.
Terdoslavich.
There you go.
Outside, 1-1.
See, what you need against Bastardo in these situations, guys that will swing like Ugla. Reed is not one of those guys, and he walked.
Chris Johnson might be somewhere in the middle.
We'll go find out.
Papelbon's got his glove, got his hat on, and now he begins.
Yep, and that's just where we're going with it, that they would not use him unless they're, well, they don't want to, unless there's 2 outs, and they don't even want to do that. When you're a strike away from 2 outs. Double play would be sweet.
Swing and a miss. He got it with a breaking pitch. He threw him a slider, the same pitch he threw him with the first offering.
See, that's what you needed there. Against Bastardo, and he throws a lot of pitches out of the zone, you need anxious hitters. And they'll get themselves out, a lot of guys. And that's what Johnson did.
So now Joey Terdoslavich will be the hitter for the Braves. He's a switch hitter. He'll bat right-handed. He picked up his first major league hit in Friday night's ball game. He's 1 for 2.
This should be a good matchup, too, because he hasn't hit off him. You'd think he would be anxious. This guy has all-world power, too, evidently. A lot of doubles one year, 50-some doubles in the minor leagues. That's an amazing number.
They are high on Terdoslavich as far as his offense goes. Phillies are hoping they can get through this 8th inning with Bastardo, and now he's ahead 1-2.
Done a good job throwing 2 called strikes. Now you have a young hitter up there that may just chase if he could throw him a good breaking ball. I think what Carlos Ruiz wants to go is wants to go breaking ball or something upstairs. Tell by the way he puts his glove.
The 1-2 pitch. Breaking ball chopped towards shortstop. Rollins charges, hurries the throw in time. And what a job by the bullpen this afternoon, particularly Bastardo. Bastardo, an inning and a third scoreless. He'll take this game to the 9th inning. The Phillies, when we come back, will have a 4-run lead in the bottom of the 8th. 4-run lead. Braves will go back to their bullpen. Well, a reminder that Tuesdays and Fridays, the Mega Million goes off. That's $12 million. And Wednesdays and Saturdays, the Powerball is at $80 million. So best of luck if you play before Tuesday. David Carpenter pitched in yesterday's ball game. He's on for the 19th game for the Braves. He's 1-0, a 2.31 earned run average. And he'll face Lance Nix because the pitcher spot is due up. And then Carlos Ruiz. Those are the first two hitters. Well, the Phillies can hang on. Winning 2 of 3 is a pretty good deal against the Atlanta Braves, as lifeless as they seem to be in yesterday's game. And they truly looked lifeless, but a lot of times when you're playing from behind, that'll happen. Now after this, they'll welcome in the Nationals beginning tomorrow night. As John Lannon will face his old club against Dan Herron. Nix this year, 204 with 2 home runs, 6 runs batted in. Outside, 1-0. Darren Ruff was lifted earlier when the Phillies made a switch defensively, but Ruff in this spot scored 2 runs. He walked, he doubled. Not a bad way to make his first start for the Phillies this year.
And their feeling was they had a nice lead, and they felt that they were strengthening their defense 2 ways. So that's why they made that move.
Check swing and a foul ball.
Closer game. You need his bat in the lineup. Don't make that move. The odds are he won't anyway.
Nice job by him. He had a hit last night and a hit again today.
I walked in the parking lot with him this morning with Joe Savory, and a big smile on his face, and so happy to be back in the major leagues. And why not? Why wouldn't you be?
And Nix is rung up 1 away here in the 8th. There's Carlos. Carlos has 2 hits this afternoon. Nice to see him pick up a couple of hits and a run scored. His average at 279. Still looking for that first home run.
Good job behind home plate today. Tough day handling all these pitchers on a hot day like this and contributing offensively. Big time catcher when you do that.
He was looking fastball there. I mean, he swung as if that was going to be a fastball right from the time it left Carpenter's hands, and it was a splitter. And it bounced in front of the plate.
This guy really has a good arm, this Carpenter. I think they can get a little wild once in a while, but he can't be fun to hit off if you're a right-hander. Oh, then he does that to you. Dude's just thinking, where's the fastball?
There it is. It was certainly not in a good spot. 0-2.
Oh, this guy's a mid-90s guy. Maybe a little more.
Was one dangerous foul ball. Wheels, did you watch the path of that foul ball?
No.
Into the Hall of Fame club, up off the back of the Hall of Fame club, back down the Hall of Fame club, and then down into the Diamond Club, shot off a couple people, hit a seat, and then landed in the waiting hands of a gentleman about 8 rows from the from the field.
It's got a few marks on it.
So are the people.
Yeah.
Ruiz down looking, 2 outs here in the 8th. And John McDonald, who came in and sacrificed earlier in the ball game, stayed in
with 2 strikes.
Stayed in to play third.
That set up that inning where they were able to get those runs on the wild pitch. There's Papelbon for the ninth.
Swing and a miss. 1 ball, 1 strike.
One coming into a non-save situation, but a very important inning.
Very important inning and a very important ball game. Phillies not only trying to play better here at home, but just play better overall and get as many wins as they possibly can at this point.
You know, you look at this game today, and even games they've been winning, the spots where you go, oh, this and that and the other thing, it's been a pretty good clean game for them today. Not a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, the chase ball aside,
right
out at second base, they've capitalized on the mistakes of the other team.
Exactly.
2-2 pitch. Back toward the middle, and it rolls under the glove of Simmons and into center field. John McDonald's second hit in the Phillies uniform. And it means Revere will bat for 5th time. Ben Revere had a 2-run triple back in the 4th.
That was one of those big 2-out, 2-run hits that they've been picking up today. It looked like they weren't going to get anything.
Fly ball, shallow right field. Ugla backing up and makes the one-handed catch. Side is retired. No runs, 1 hit. And 1 man left on base. Well, it is not a save situation, but Jonathan Papelbon is coming on to face the top of the order against the Braves in the 9th. today's action with the Braves and everything happening in the world of Phillies baseball. That's next on the Phillies postgame show, live from Sugar House Casino. Top of the ninth inning, the Phillies lead it by 4. It's not a safe situation, but it's an important ball game for the Phillies. Jonathan Papelbon is going to come on and try to get the last 3 outs against the top of the Braves order. Crowd of 38,148. As you can imagine, the folks on the first base side have went off to seek some shelter with the sun. Third base side is still got a pretty decent crowd on it, with that side of the field being in the shade.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Big difference. Well, not that big, but
it's
enough.
A difference, yeah. Hats off to everybody who came out today, 38,000 plus, to watch the Phils and the Braves in the final game of this 3-game series.
Amazing attendance here this afternoon, as hot as it is.
Simmons is 1 for 4. First pitch over for a strike. Mets lead the Brewers 2-1 in the bottom of the 8th inning. Josh Satin, 3 hits. Things have tightened up a little bit down in Washington. The Nationals lead is at 5 in the 8th inning. The Padres are threatening in that ball game. Inside, 1 ball, 1 strike. Pettibone went the first 5 and a third for the Phillies. He had a really nice pace going to his outing today, but then ran into a little bit of trouble in the 5th and 6th. They took him out with 1 out in the 6th. And then the Phillies' pen took over. And now it's 2-1.
Padres are really struggling and about ready to lose another game, it would appear. But one thing they do have in their favor, they know tonight when their airplane lands, there won't be any humidity. They're finally going to go home. After spending the weekend in Washington, get thumped the way that they have, that has to be that'll be nice for them tonight.
Tip, it's 2-2. It was a high fastball.
Looks like Simmons is going to go up there and be patient too and try and get on base. And hopefully they can get a long ball later on in this inning, but he chased one way out of the zone.
Just barely got a piece of that one and rolls it foul.
He's playing a lot of 3-hour games lately, and this will be another one today. Not much you can do with your manager right now. You've done all you can, mixing and matching your bullpen to get to your closer with a 4-run lead. Freddie Gonzalez is saying, hey, I'm just going to watch. I'm not going to be pinch hitting in this spot in the order. So managers just sit there and let their players take over.
Yeah, the Braves have 25 comfort behind victories this year, which is tops in the National League. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Simmons. And he fouls it back. Well, the fan never worked, so he just figured he'd protect himself.
Yeah, protect that ear.
Folks sitting out in the sun today aren't going to have to work out for at least 2 or 3 days. They burned enough calories sitting here watching the game.
I think so.
2-2 pitch. And a foul ball.
8 pitch at bat so far for Simmons. Give him a heck of an at bat. This kid looks like he has a chance to be a really good player. They get him out of the leadoff spot someday too. And, you know, I would think that's not a real good spot for him.
I think they thought that maybe B.J. Upton would be their leadoff hitter. He's worked it full, 3-2. The ball looked like it slipped out of Papelbon's hand.
It's one of those innings you just don't want drama. With a 4-run lead and all these guys are going to hit homers.
This is a 10-pitch at bat now. So the 11th pitch of this at bat to Simmons is a few seconds away from being thrown from Jonathan Papelbon.
That great at bat McCann had earlier today. Got Pettibone out of the game a little earlier. Jonathan really did well today, but that one had to take a lot out of him.
That was the at bat to begin the 5th inning when he singled to left field. Papelbon pitched on Friday night for the Phillies. Got the last 3 outs for them. Here's the 3-2 to Simmons. Outside ball 4. The leadoff walk.
Yeah, Eddings doesn't want to hear it. That pitch is way outside. He just doesn't want to hear it right now. He's probably a little hot under the collar anyway with all that heat working back there. Guys have been on him all afternoon. That's one of those ones. I know that was a ball.
So now Hayward has singled and walked in his last 2 at bats.
Play off him at first over there. And just a little courtesy. Let Simmons know somebody's behind him. But for the most part, you see with a 4-run lead, Young's going to take the hole away with a left-handed hitter up.
A 1 pitch. And it's 0-2. Little individual milestone for Papelbon, showing his longevity. He is the 32nd active pitcher to throw 500 games. Throw in 500 games. The 0-2 pitch. Ground ball, first base, handled by Michael Young. He'll just take it to the bag instead of making that throw. And there's one away.
Good play. Smart play. No reason to throw that ball to second base. Only bad things can happen. See, we talked about how he's playing off the line, so it goes right to him. As hard as that was hit by Hayward, if he's holding the runner on there, that's a tough play. But being off there like that, he got a good look at it. He wasn't screened so badly. And then you just go get the out with a 4-run lead. That run meant something, and then maybe you got to go to second there and get the force.
So Simmons is in scoring position. Justin Upton, who's 0 for 4. Braves so far have left 9. Upton has struck out. He's grounded out. He's flied out. And he struck out a second time. Over at the knees. Threw him a splitter on the first pitch. Foul ball, 0-2. Back-to-back secondary pitches. That also was a splitter from Papelbon.
Upton just looks so vulnerable away. This guy, he couldn't have a much better month of April than he had.
12 home runs in the month of April, 3 since then. See where they go. Ruiz is going to creep toward the outside part of the plate and try to fastball a little up, and it's 1-2. It was off the plate.
Yeah, but a good idea to go out there. It just was never a strike out of his hand, and Upton saw that.
Ground ball toward third, a foul ball. That pitch was left up. It was the slurve that Papelbon throws. It's a slider, but it's got more of a loop to it recently.
You watch a guy like Upton too. Usually guys that swing their practice swings or just waggle the bat before the pitch is thrown and do what he does, they want the ball down. They're low ball hitters. You watch the way he just waggles the bat real low like that. And those guys normally are really dead ball, low ball hitters. And they've tried to go upstairs with him a couple times here.
Swing and a miss. He got him with a fastball. Little cheese to Justin Upton, and there are 2 outs.
And away again too. He just, I don't know what has happened to him from early in the season to now, but he just pulls off everything and anything away. Look at that hip fly out before he swings, and anything away, he's just vulnerable.
So Papelbon 1 out away from giving the Phils a victory in this series. They won game 1. They were beat up in game 2, and now they bounce back nicely here in the final game of this series. Freddie Freeman has struck out 3 times today.
Nice to see Brian McCann on deck, and no, there's no way he can be the tying run.
Freddie Freeman just looked over into the dugout after that swing for some reason.
He's really had a tough afternoon. They want to make it one more at bat, worry about him later on, because they're going to see a lot more of him this year, and this guy can really hit.
Papelbon didn't like the first set of signs that Ruiz threw down, so they do it again. And now the 0-1 pitch. Way inside. 1 ball, one strike.
Problem with this for Papelbon, he's not. This isn't over yet. And he's already up to 21 pitches, which makes it tough to go back to back in save situations. See what happens here before he's finished. Simmons is the guy that's really made it a long inning for him.
Yeah, here an 11 pitch at bat. He's at second base, but it's 1 ball and 2 strikes.
Well, this is the one they've been waiting for about 3 hours and 10 minutes.
It's been a long one. It was humming along pretty nicely until the Phils got it to their bullpen. but they've methodically worked their way to this point. Try to take 2 of 3 from the Braves.
Bennings calls Freddie Freeman out. You could see a classic snap.
Everybody set, everybody on their feet. Now the 1-2 pitch. Ground ball. We'll do it again.
They've had their problems today.
Yesterday's ballgame left a bad taste in everybody's mouth the way the Phillies lost, and now they've got a chance to win the series. Everybody's set again. The 1-2 again. And another foul ball. Nice catch. Wow, that guy just saved a whole lot of folks down there. Down the left field line. Left-handed grab. Yep.
He didn't catch it.
He didn't, but it would have been an even better story if he did, because that ball was drilled.
Oh, was that hit hard. That was an emergency swing by Freddie Freeman.
And an emergency catch, too.
It was. There were sirens blowing on both ends of that one.
Fifth pitch of the inning coming from Papelbon to Freddie Freeman. Pulled to the right side. Utley is there from shallow right field. Throws to first in time. And the Phillies have taken 2 of 3 from the first place Atlanta Braves. They do so with a 7-3 victory this afternoon here in Philadelphia. Jonathan Papelbon in his 500th career appearance. He doesn't get the save because it wasn't a save situation, but he was able to secure the win for the Phillies and Jonathan Pettibone, who improved to 5-3. Well, as it turns out, it was a pretty good series for the Phillies. They won 2 of 3, even though yesterday was pretty good thumping. But they took game 1, they take game 3, and our Chevrolet player of the game, Dominic Brown, one of the newer All-Stars, 2 for 4, a triple home run, and 2 runs batted in, and the Phillies certainly needed his effort this afternoon at the plate.
Yeah, it's a nice job by the Phillies to come back in this after that really horrible game last night and get ahead of the Atlanta Braves and keep the lead. Here's our WB Mason deliveries of the game. They had a bunch of 2-out hits in this game, and there's one of them by Dominic off Freeman's glove. This will turn into a run-scoring triple as Chase Utley scores. Dominic would then score later on in that inning on a base hit. And then in the 5th inning, he kept it going. Medlin looked like a slider or cutter came down and then on him, and he hits it into that area. It's a great catch by that fan out there. And the Phillies kept scoring 2-out runs today. In fact, the only run they scored today without 2 outs was that home run by Dominic Brown. Those are our WB Mason deliveries of the game. Tom just said the newest Phillies All-Star, Dominic Brown. He's down there with Murph. Murph?
Yeah, I'm sure that certainly has a nice ring to it. The newest All-Star here in Philadelphia. But Dom, let's talk about this game and the offense. You guys scored in 4 different innings today. Obviously, 2 big blows from you. Talk a little bit about how this offense is really starting to click.
Oh, man, it feels great. You know, like I told you earlier, the chemistry in the clubhouse has been amazing. We look great on paper. We're finally starting to put up some good numbers. Pettibone pitched well tonight, and you got to score runs with this ball club we're playing against, man. They're a great team, and they battle back always.
It's no secret, obviously, coming into this week, you guys know just how important it is. First step, win this series, you're able to do that. Just how important is that as now you look ahead to the Washington Nationals?
Oh, exactly. We're just division rivals right here against the Braves. Tough team. We won 2 out of 3. Wish we could have got that one back last night, but, that's tough loss, and we keep moving forward. Got D.C. coming in town, and we're trying to win a series against them as well.
For you personally, I know it's got to be very satisfying to get the news yesterday. I know you got it before the game. We haven't had a chance to hear your thoughts on it as an all-star? Just how special is that?
Murph, it's an honor for sure, especially all the ups and downs I've been through. But this is just the beginning for me. I'm going to keep working hard and keep battling and try to improve every day.
Oh, that's what people like to hear. Dom, congratulations on the game, and congratulations on the All-Star nod as well. Guys, we'll send it back upstairs. Go get cool.
Yeah.
All right, Murph, thank you very much. So the Phillies take 2 of 3 from the Atlanta Braves. They win today 7-3. A much-needed victory, not only in today's game, but also in this series overall.